Hello, it's Linda K. Black. Okay, I have Secrets to a Happy Marriage by Linda K. Black, but it's not my opinion, what other people tell me. Remember, it's not my opinion, what other people. In fact, this morning I saw some firefighters practicing, so I went up there and I talked to them. Because, before I videotaped them, I had permission to videotape them. But the firefighter, I told him about Secrets to a Happy Marriage. Okay. See, one of the most important things is when you marry somebody, marry a Christian. First of all, marry a Christian, and then go by Bible principles, okay? And once you marry them, don't cheat. No matter how many women chase you and you're a man, you say no. Let's say you're a woman. No matter how many men come after you, you say no. And you be faithful. That's the secret to a happy marriage. Okay, being faithful and being kind to each other and all the things too, yeah. I told them, sometimes they used to say happy wife, happy life, happy wife, happy life. And I met a man, he wasn't happy. He never gets his way. But the men, they need to get their way too, okay? It's a team, like a teamwork. When I broke my hip, I asked the guys in the ambulance, once the pain stopped, I said, what do you think is the secret to a happy marriage? And they said, well, like in this ambulance, we have to work together. The paramedics have to work together. So when you're married, you have to work together. That's very important. But anyway, I'm going to talk about my aunt Olive. And she was married to a minister, and she had a wonderful life. And she liked the Baptist church better than the Assemblies. But anyway, she said, and the Baptists, they always have an altar, and everybody goes up there and prays. They pray all the time. I had a friend at Northridge. He said, it's hard, you go up to pray, and everybody thinks, oh, what did you do wrong? What did you do wrong? The attitude a little bit different. But anyway, she taught me a lot of things in life. Okay, but she had a wonderful husband. She had a happy marriage. And so after her husband died, then it was my business. I don't mind my own business to find her a man. So I decided, she lived in another town. She didn't live in Bakersfield. But anyway, she came to Bakersfield, and I picked out 3 men for her to check out. So this one man, he was like a kind of new convert, but she was willing to take him. Even though he's just a new Christian, kind of a new Christian. But anyway, I had her meet with him, and I told my mom we were going to go to the library. I'm going to go talk to the librarian. And so I went to the library, and the librarian told me where this guy lived that I knew. And then we went to another town, the 3 of us riding, and I called my mom, said, yeah, we're in another town. There's a bookmobile here. I still went to the library, library in another town. But anyway, I introduced her to him. And so the next man I was going to introduce her to, he was a minister of a church. He was a minister. But anyway, we went to this but you know what? The women at his church sabotaged the relationship. That's not fair. He was a good catch. He was a minister, and but the women in the church was like sabotaging it. So then I met the other man. Okay, Blackie Harris, and Blackie Harris went to my church. Evangel Assembly of God. He was a wonderful man. He's a wonderful person, and he actually played polo with I can't think of his name, Williams. But there's a museum in LA, and there's a man, he was famous, he played polo, and there's a museum. But anyway, Blackie Harris used to play polo with him. Today there's a guy in the restaurant right here, he had a picture of a polo, of them with a stick, a horse and hitting the ball, but he was he was a very interesting man. You know, he had a hobby. One thing is good is have a husband that has a hobby. You know, so you don't have to take care of him all the time, right? But anyway, so I called him up on the telephone. I said, "Hello, this is Linda K. Black. I want to introduce you to my aunt. Would you like to go out for coffee in the morning?" He said, "What's wrong with right now?" He said, "Right now? Right now?" He said that. But anyway, I thought it was kind of nice. They met each other, and they got married. And he had a business, and he sold it. I think it was for $1 million. But the people that he sold it to, they didn't make $1 million like he was making $1 million all the time, and so they sued him. And I remember my aunt said, she said, "We can be better or bitter, better or better, better or bitter." But anyway, in the end, probably before the end, he was selling food at Costco. You know how they give out samples? But after they got married, they went, I think, to Europe and stuff like that and everything. But he was a good catch. He's a good man. And I got them together. I think they were married, 13 years. And they were happy. And I knew she was a good woman, and I knew he was a good man. And I remember sometime, he told me at one time, I don't know if he told me or she told me, but each one of them had their own garden. And so I think my Aunt Olive looked over at his garden, and his garden, you know, she always planted everything straight. But anyway, he planted his crooked. You're supposed to plant it crooked, at an angle. But one of them went over there and straightened up their garden. But the other one thought they were helping. I don't know if it's him or her at this point. But they straightened out their garden. But they really loved each other, and that was wonderful. And I was so glad that I got to introduce my Aunt Olive to a wonderful man. And I wish I could remember that guy that played the polo, prepaid polo, with a famous guy. They have a museum in Los Angeles. And then I remember Blackie Harris. He told me he belonged to the Gideons. But you can't belong to the Gideons unless you have $1 million. $1 million. But anyway, and then they put Bibles in all the hotel rooms. They put hotel Bibles in all the hotel rooms. So it's a club of millionaires, maybe billionaires, I don't know. But anyway, he was a wonderful person, and he was content with life. He wasn't after the best of everything, you know, like houses and stuff like that. He was content in life. He was very content. Being content is very important. And he was a wonderful man, and my Aunt Olive, she was a wonderful person. And they got married. So that's one of the ones that I put together. Okay, because of Linda K. Black. Okay, Secrets to a Happy Marriage, my webpage, not my opinion, but what other people tell me. Oh yeah, I was telling you this morning, I told those firefighters about my webpage, and I said, don't argue when you're mad. Never argue when you're mad. You wait till you're calm, and then you argue, okay? Then you argue. Okay, bye, be good. Believe in God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit. And pray for America, pray for Canada, pray for the world. Okay, bye.